Let's go ahead and jump in officially. If you don't know me already, I'm Kat from the Wild Alaskan Company recipe team. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to sear wild salmon. We're going to use sockeye salmon today here. The platonic seared fillet is juicy, flaky, and has some crispy skin. I'm going to also show you how to make a savory sauce out of blueberries. It's going to be an herby blueberry sauce that will just spoon all over the fish once it's cooked. I think having a blueberry sauce is great for the summer. In Alaska, blueberries and sockeye are ready to harvest at the same time, so there's a nice synergy of ingredients there. All right, time to cook. Today, we're making crispy seared salmon with blueberry-thyme compote. It's actually a very short ingredient list, relatively speaking. I actually had to Google what the difference is between compote, and there's a bunch of different sauces. There's gastrique, there's everything that involves fruit. It's a little confusing and it sounds fancy, but it's basically just a sauce made from cooked fruit. It's a quick jam that you can make right on the stovetop, but you eat it when it's fresh. So if you've ever made homemade applesauce, you can make a blueberry compote. So let's get this started. I have a little saucepan here. There's just a splash of water in there to kind of get things started. And then to that, I'm going to add, I have frozen blueberries. Just throw them right into the pot with a little splash of water. This will help things start to simmer. In addition to that, I'm going to add some lemon zest and lemon juice. This is going to add a little bit of like fresh acidity to what's going to be, otherwise a pretty sweet, savory sauce. And then the herby component of this is going to be thyme. We'll just throw a couple thyme sprigs straight into the saucepan here. And then juice of half a lemon. Depending on how sweet the fruit is, you also want to add a little bit of honey or maple syrup. So I'm going to add maybe a teaspoon of honey here. That should be about a teaspoon. So I'm going to bring this to a gentle simmer. Turn this down to maybe low. And we're just going to let this cook in the background here while we're working on the salmon. I don't want this to be a puree, so I want to kind of let the heat gently cook the blueberries. Hopefully they stay together a little bit so that the compote has some shape. Let me give this a little pinch of salt too, just to balance that out. So that's just going to be cooking passively in the background. Maybe about 10 minutes is all we need for that to get nice and saucy. So in the meantime, let's preheat the skillet that I have. So I'm using just a stainless steel skillet. Doesn't matter what size it is, as long as it's big enough for you to feel comfortable cooking a fillet or two of fish. Right now, I just have my fillet of sockeye. I've patted it dry with a paper towel. This is a very important step. You want to make sure you pat both sides dry, the skin side and the flesh side. Any moisture that's on here when you put it in the pan is going to potentially cause the fish to stick to the pan. And it's also going to inhibit the sear. When there's moisture on the surface of the fish, it's going to actually end up steaming the surface of the fish rather than crisping it. Get it nice and dry. The skin now feels pretty dry to me. We've got salt on the fish. I do want to preheat my pan to pretty hot, medium high. We definitely want to get the pan super hot before we put anything into it. The reason to do this is because as soon as the fish hits that hot pan, that's when you're going to get that first really important step to searing the skin. Don't get too impatient when you're preheating things. You want to give it at least a couple of minutes to get nice and hot. My favorite thing to sear with is ghee. So ghee is clarified butter, and it doesn't have milk solids in it, so it doesn't burn, even at very, very high temperatures. I like cooking with ghee. It burns really cleanly, has a gentle buttery flavor to it, and just makes things a lot less smoky. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this into the pan here, and we're looking hot. Once that's melted, let's get it around the pan here. Once this is melted and the fat's heated up a little bit, I'm going to put the salmon into the pan. From here on out, the next 15 to 30 seconds goes pretty quickly. So I've just, again, patted the fish dry, salted it, put it in carefully. You probably can't hear the sizzle on my computer's mic. The fish should sizzle almost immediately. What I like to do is turn it down from medium high to medium once it's in the pan. And then what I'm doing now with the fish spatula is I'm holding it against the skillet. So this is getting me really good contact between the skin and the oil and the surface of the pan itself. If you're not holding this flat against the fillet, what tends to happen is the fish starts to bow. It becomes a little bit concave, and then you're not going to get a sear because the skin isn't actually touching the pan. So 15 seconds or so of the spatula pressing the fish firmly against the skillet is probably all you need. So put a fillet in, press it for 15 seconds, maybe put in another fillet after that and press that for 15 seconds. I'm just gonna let that sit there for maybe another 2 minutes because right now we're in a balancing act between trying to get crispy skin and trying not to overcook the fish. The other thing that you must resist is you don't want to mess with the fish. Right now, it is literally sticking to the pan and it's not going to come off of it unless you force it with your fish spatula, but trust that the fish will release itself once it's ready. Essentially, once the skin gets nice and crisp, it becomes a hard sear and it actually starts to separate from the pan. So just wait patiently, don't fuss with it. It'll tell you when it's ready. While this is searing, maybe for another minute, check on the berries, just give them a little bit of a stir. You can give this a taste. Tastes sweet enough to me, and it's almost ready. You'll notice on the salmon, when it's pretty close to being ready to flip, the salmon will start to kind of cook up the sides of the fillet, even on a fillet this thin. This is the moment of truth here. Okay, I literally just like nudged the salmon and it came off. It came off of the pan without having to like do any sort of fussing with it. So I just flipped it. Got a nice crispy skin situation happening here. And I just turned off the stove altogether. There's no flame. The pan itself is already hot enough. And I'm gonna let this cook for maybe a minute just on the flesh side to ensure that it's not super raw or super rare. But beyond that, we're pretty much done with the fish. This was all it took. Hot pan, not fussing with it, fillet that's patted dry and the right oil, and then patience. I'm just gonna move that off the burner into the back. And then the blueberry sauce. The blueberry sauce in here is nice, rich color, a little bit thick, a little bit juicy. If you're just serving this for yourself, you can save the sauce in the fridge. Just put it in a container for up to a week. It should be good. It does have some lemon juice in there, which will help preserve it. And then the salmon, let's see how this is looking. Oh, beautiful. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put butter in the compote, so I might have to move this back to the pot in a moment. But in the meantime, look at this beautiful fillet of fish. I don't know if any of you are on social media, but the thing they do now for crispy skin or crispy anything is they like rub a knife against it. Can you hear that? I don't know if you can or not, but super crispy. We got nice golden edges. I'm going to leave this skin side up for the moment because I did forget. I want to stir some butter into this. You don't have to add butter to the compote, but it gives it a really nice glossy sheen. And you can do that off the heat. It's delicious. Tablespoon is good for a cup of blueberries. And we'll just let this melt in there. It looks like actual whole blueberries are in this sauce. So this looks gorgeous. Amazing. This is one of my favorite dishes to make, so I'm really happy you're here to enjoy this with me. Let me just bring this a little bit closer to the camera here. So yeah, the blueberries are just simmering super gently, so they retain some of their shape, and that's just like a really nice texture to have in addition to the crispy skin and then the really tender flakes here. So, well, let's break into this to see how beautiful this is. So perfectly flaky, crispy on top. You know, if you like something a little less cooked, this is probably about medium here on the edges. I like my salmon a little medium rare, so I probably should have taken it off maybe 30 seconds earlier, but this is still super, super delicious. It cooked gently on the other side. Amazing. This is a great summer meal or anytime meal, like I said, because you can use frozen blueberries, but just a perfect way to toast to the season and the harvest that we have. I really hope that you have confidence to do a pan sear, hopefully sometime this week, maybe even tonight, hoping that you'll get a nice crispy skin. If you don't get it on the first try, give yourself a little grace. Maybe you need to wait for the pan to heat a little bit longer. Maybe you need to wait another minute for the actual skin to release itself from the pan. There are a couple of things you can do to troubleshoot on your own, but that's pretty much all you need to do. And after that, you're an expert, and it'll be really fun. So thank you so much. I hope to see you next week. We're going to be making fish sandwiches. So until then, live wild, everyone.